Welcome to Silicon Valley Impact, where business insight meets startup innovation. And now, please give a warm welcome to your host, Brian Sparks.
Always firing up that energy. Thank you, Brian. Awesome, incredible. And the crowd is going wild.
Indeed.
Yes.
They're so happy to see you every week. They love you, Brian, like we all do.
I gotta admit, I liked the welcome.
Yeah.
That was a little intentional. I love that. That lead in brought in a different intensity, which I love.
You know, I'm trying to bring my real radio voice. Right?
Yeah, every week you're stretching your legs and taking it to another level.
Well, I only get like 10 seconds, unless I butt in, so I got to make the most of it, right? I mean, how else am I going to launch a career here, Brian?
I know. It's like, all right, pipe down, Brian. We got to get going.
Okay, what do you got? Any housekeeping this week? You got anything you need to talk about?
There's a couple things I want to talk about.
First of all, what are we doing this week? Or what did we do last week?
So we did the Opal group in that event. We had a lot of...
So good. Man, we killed it. We knocked it out of the park.
Yeah.
While we were up there in San Francisco for the Opal event.
We got to talk to a lot of great talent that came through the Bay from all over the world talking about AI, which we're going to talk a little bit about today. But the Opal organization puts on a great event. And so if you want to get involved with those upcoming events, because you just missed this one, go to, I believe it's opal.net. And check out Opal events. They have one coming up in Napa. We'll be chairing another one in Dana Point towards the end of the year, but they're always in California, but they're throughout the world. So great people coming through that. And we also had a very successful launch event in Oakland. You were there.
I was. It was awesome.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. Brian.
This was just last week?
This was yesterday.
Yesterday.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, I mean.
What week is it, Brian? What week is it?
Yeah, we don't know. All
right.
We're in time machine. Okay.
Yeah, so last week, a week ago yesterday.
Yeah. And we're going to be doing a lot more events out at the Oakland 1900 Broadway space. We're going to be doing dinners. We're going to be doing pitch events. We're going to be doing panels, more lunches. We got a lot of things coming.
It's a beautiful space. So for anybody who has heard about it but is on the fence about whether to go or not, you should go.
You should go.
Yeah.
And if you can't go right now, you can go to stackspace.com. Check out 1900 Broadway on LinkedIn. You can also check out Stack Ventures on LinkedIn as well. So they're our venture partners. We're really close with them. So love what they're doing. And so, we're going to keep the ball rolling out there in Oakland to complete that tech triangle.
Okay.
We truly believe you can raise in Silicon Valley, innovate in San Francisco, and grow in Oakland.
Wow.
Yeah, you like that?
Yeah, I really do.
Okay.
No, it actually really resonates with me.
Yeah, the tech triangle.
Yeah.
All right, let's bring in our guest today. We have...
no purpose of the show today, Brian? Are we abandoning the purpose of this show, or what?
I don't have my computer open, Brian. I've been saying that the purpose of this show is to have high quality people.
Yeah.
And have conversations, build a community. And so you can make an impact, something, wow. Make an impact.
Seems like at this point we would have that memorized, doesn't it?
It's very
One
robotic.
of us should have that memorized. Yeah. Well, all right, that's fine.
I'm getting out of my head. But
Emotional, damn it.
All right.
Okay, I'm ready. I'm done. I'm going to give it over to you.
Let's roll. Let's get into it. So we have a couple great individuals. I'm going to do as I usually do, hand the mic to them to let them do their intro. But Svetlana, good to see you.
Yeah, likewise. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, glad you could finally make it here. Give a quick little intro so we can jump right into what you're working on, and then we can do a deep dive.
Okay, wonderful. My name is Svetlana Kamyshanskaya. I'm a corporate attorney and a startup advisor. I have a law firm, Primum Law Group, and we primarily work with tech companies, startups, and growing businesses. And these days, definitely being in Silicon Valley, we cannot avoid or we enjoy serving the tech companies that develop AI technology. And that's the topic of our conversation today. So how we can support AI startups and at the same time help mid-sized companies to adopt without being in troubles.
Yeah, I love it. And there's a lot to learn. And there's a lot of questions. There could be a lot of there could be a lot of risk that you could put yourself at if you're not having these conversations that we're going to have today if you're a startup. So we'll do a deep dive into that.
Sure. LouAnn Conner, and I have an advisory firm, Sagacious Think, and I work with small, medium-sized companies around transformation. So transformation being international expansion, preparing for exit, IPO, M&A, post-M&A integration, large kind of transformational challenges or opportunities that they have.
Okay, and that's good. That covers a lot. And having you both here is going to kind of, I hope, give our audience who are startups a big picture of that strategy. And if I can start there with both of you, why is it important early on to develop a strategy when it comes to understanding what they're up against? And you can go anywhere with that. So what would be top of mind? Why? I mean, it seems like a lot when it comes to the law for a startup and when it comes to expansion and scaling, because that's what a venture is. We need to go global.
Right.
Where do we need to begin with this conversation? Svetlana, I'll kick it over to you.
Sure. I think it's very important to see the bigger picture to start with. For whatever size the company, like if you're early stage startup and you develop AI technology, in most cases you have an ambition to become global company. Mm-hmm. And these days we can observe the challenges that like humanity goes through, right? So we have political issues, we have wars again in the world. And it all impacts the development in a sense. So data becomes more and more strategic. The regulations, we don't have global regulations, nor we have any authority that can come up with that in the foreseen future. So definitely when you set up the company, when you start developing the product, you have to see the big picture and you have to understand what direction are you going into, because it impacts allocation of your team, data management. It impacts like how you develop the product and target your market, because the expectations are different. Mm-hmm. So without seeing a bigger picture and having at least understanding of your like long-term strategy, and the long-term I'm referring to life cycle of a startup, mm-hmm. it's hard to become successful, at least in my opinion.
And there's a lot to consider from the beginning, but also thinking from the end. LouAnn, talk a little bit about, same question, like right. Where do you begin with this conversation around global expansion, understanding law, understanding how to drive a great business? Because you can have a great idea, but just shoot yourself in the foot,
right.
But not understanding the strategy. So where do we begin with this?
Right. Well, I think it's what does the company want to do? What is it looking to do? What is it hoping to achieve? What's its mission, vision, values? And then starting from there. And then what's the strategy? What are they looking forward to do in, however many increments, 5 years, whatever it is that they wanted to talk about, and then coming back and breaking it down. Mm-hmm. And I was just going to add one other component that I look at and focusing more on, especially with early stage companies, is around corporate governance, because that's, to me, is the third leg in the stool if you're looking at what a good business is. And if the corporate governance, the strategy, the operations are all aligned and all in balance, then your stool's not wobbly. But that's when it gets out of balance, that's where the trouble begins.
Yeah. When do startups come to you? Because it's not, corporate governance is almost like out there from a startup's perspective. But do they come to you once their hair is on fire, or do they really do start? I know what they should do. I know what your answer is going to be.
Right.
Come as early as possible. But when do people usually show up, and then where's that sweet spot of like, hey, I need to start asking questions about this?
To your point, it's usually, excuse me, when their hair is on fire, when there is so like some rework or some asking those questions, like what is the strategy, and then what's the governance around it?
Yeah.
So not sure, but I'll just throw out a definition of corporate governance just to make sure that everybody's on the same page. And so corporate governance at its most basic is ensuring that the company is operating as optimally and as ethically as possible for its given stage. Mm-hmm. So, going to what you're talking about, a lot of times early stage companies, like around Series A, is when they start thinking about boards.
Okay.
But usually it's when the investors are coming in. So it's usually the investors and the founders.
Okay. I don't want to get, because I can immediately feel like we're going to get pulled.
We could get sucked in.
Yeah,
absolutely.
We're going to get pulled into the details and stuff. But the reason people come on Brian and I's show, the reason why they're here is because they're great people. And I always ask the question, why this space for you? What is it that you love about doing what you do? And how did you get here? Like, what was that pathway, Svetlana? What landed you in this particular area of law? What is it about what you do that you love?
I had very unconventional path. So being Russian,
kind. The best kind.
Born and raised in Russia. And in fact, I started practicing law in Russia back like in early 2000s. So I love people. I was very successful attorney in Russia, and the reason why I came here, not because I dreamed about that from my birth or like I had an idea about America. First time I came here, the concentration of extremely interesting people in Silicon Valley is something that I never met anywhere else, and I'm well traveled. So I think that's what attracted me the most, and that's what attracts me to support and work with startups. Mm-hmm. The smartest people from all over the globe come here, and I have a privilege to help them with something that they don't know, but it's helpful and it benefits society. So that's why. Mm-hmm. I'm really excited. I love my clients. I'm very happy when I feel the results and I can support and really kind of make their life easier. And I'm here definitely at service.
And I may have missed this, but I want to double click on it. Before you came to the States and you were practicing law, were you also focusing on startups?
No. So I was doing a lot of investment work. Uh-huh. Initially, it was real estate investment, and then I started representing foreign investors in the U.S., and that's why I ended up being in Berkeley, and I did my business LLM here. So I was represented investors in different industry. In most cases, it was private equity and kind of business acquisitions. Mm-hmm. But then when I moved here, I moved as a partner for a consulting company. And they were interested in back then in supporting Eastern European startups in kind of incoming process to the US. And that's how I got into this industry.
And then the energy just pulled you in. Yeah. It is good. LouAnn, same question. How did you get into this, and what was kind of your pathway, and what is it that you love about doing what you do?
Sure. Well, I'm not from Russia, from Minnesota, but I started my career doing operations, so running and building telecom company or organizations and scaling them all over the globe. Mm-hmm. And then my husband is a San Francisco native and decided we were living in DC that he wanted to come back here. And I thought, well, this is the land of entrepreneurship. I'm going to start something, and this is the advisory practice, and see what I can do. I think there's an opportunity to help smaller, earlier stage companies around operations. Mm-hmm. And I think similar to Svetlana, just the incredible amount of people. What I love is I feel like it's always an education for me. Mm-hmm. I'm learning new technologies, new business models, meeting new people, new ways to doing things. So it's constantly keeping on top of that. Yeah.
I got to ask a question that is relevant, but maybe kind of off script. Not that we have a script here, but positioning yourself. You're talking about advisory work, lawyer. There's a lot of people who can kind of say, well, yeah, I'm a lawyer, I'm advisory. That's a very competitive, what you guys do is very competitive. And this is relevant to startups because marketing, go to market, branding, positioning, getting clients is very difficult. So in your space, how were you able to, and Svetlana, once you were in Berkeley, getting out of Berkeley and wanting to start out on your own, and LouAnn, same thing, I want to become, build this business around advisory. How did you go to market with this? How did you position yourself to be where you are now and become the go-to person in this space? What was kind of those early strategies that you used?
I think the most important thing for me was really to clarify and define for myself what my values are. Mm-hmm. And I really value in everyone and everything I'm dealing with. I want to trust to people, and I want to rely to people I'm dealing with. And that's what I'm providing to my clients. I don't know if everyone does that or no one, but this is very important. And I think when you are entrepreneur, and my husband is an engineer, I know how scientists and engineers think. Mm-hmm. They really have to have those trustworthy people who hold them back, so they can innovate, they can develop new technologies, but on a kind of day-to-day level, it's challenging for them to navigate, to rely, to even comprehend sometimes like what is going on. So this is one set. Another thing is that as I mentioned before, I'm a foreigner, and I can see the situation through different lenses. Like when you're a foreigner and you come, you have either idea or you have already company, and it doesn't matter, like, are you coming from Asia or from Europe, Eastern Europe, or very developed like Switzerland, it's still challenging to navigate. So I can kind of relate and get into their shoes to be with them.
Yeah. And you haven't said it yet, but I'm always seeing you at events. I think that's how
Someone
met.
introduced
Yeah,
us.
yeah. But you're always out there engaging in the community, having these conversations, getting involved. Because I think what a lot of people do is they will build a company or they'll roll out a service and they think, well, if I just put it out there, you build it, they'll come. And that's not the case. And you did talk about the market a little bit, but you emphasized values, which I think is really important in order to kind of accelerate a company early that's often overlooked. So
Yeah, that's true.
yeah. LouAnn, same question. How did you position yourself in advisory? That's tough.
Yeah, I think for me, it was echoing again what Svetlana said. I think it's the values. It's having the opportunity to say, these are the people I want to work with, and having that as a way to narrow it down. But then I think the challenge is being an operator I was a generalist. So what about all the things I can focus on? What do I want to? And I thought it's the international expansion. It's that global perspective, and then tacking on a little bit is I'm an engineer by training, so I think there's that kind of trust issue, especially with a lot of technology startups, that she has the engineering side and she has the business as well, and so that's a marriage there, that kind of understanding both sides of the equation.
Okay, so I'm hearing, number one, the values, and then of course that connectivity to your market.
Right.
There's this idea, like, I can understand what my market is working on, and you mentioned a little bit about it. You found your niche. And whether it's identifying a pain point in the market or understanding people specifically, you connected with that. You took the values and then you focused on that rather than tried to boil the ocean and just throw out, what you're working on. You really, it sounds like you intentionally were cultivating that space.
Well, I wouldn't say I started out that initially. I think there was definitely some lessons learned where you have to refine that as you go along, but absolutely.
So you pivoted.
I definitely pivoted.
Yeah.
I can share that story.
I love it. All right. So I got to say this. So Svetlana, you mentioned that your practice focuses a lot on startups with AI. And it does feel a little bit like the wild, wild west right now. And there's a lot to learn, not only from a user's perspective, let alone a startup's perspective. Kind of give us your perspective on the AI adoption rush. How do we start to learn what we need to learn in this AI rush?
I think there are two buckets here. First, like if we talk about AI adoption, we are talking primarily about mid-market. Like those are customers for AI startups. And I think LouAnn is going to be a better person to talk about what are the responsibilities that companies have to fulfill when they adopt AI. What I'm looking when I help startup founders to navigate this market, I'm definitely driven by the idea of making them fundable. So to tell early stage founder, like you have to think about corporate governance and becoming ethical. If it doesn't directly relate to the check that investor is gonna give them, it's not really something that you can push on that. But on another end, I know that in the process of AI development, if you don't make the key strategic decisions rightfully and timely, down the road it can become completely obsolete, because like you wouldn't be able to pivot rightfully, you wouldn't be able to comply with applicable law, because we can see the trends. And in that sense, kind of get into your previous point, we have to be connected to our target audience, and those are engineers. That's why when I go to conferences, I try to go not to legal conferences, but to industry. So I know what is that is happening, so I can understand not just illegal trends, but trends what is happening in industry.
Yeah.
And that's how we help them, kind of to link it all together and make it adoptable by customers down the road.
Yeah. I'm going to pivot to you in a minute, LouAnn, but
Sure.
there's something I think our audience needs to know about your experience as well, is when you talk about fundability, getting them ready for fundability, and also protecting them, right? Put on your investor hat for a second, because something we didn't mention until up to this point is you do a little angel investing as well. If you can kind of draw this or share with our audience from a lawyer's perspective, what are you looking for, not only from an investor's perspective, but a lawyer who is trying to put together a fundable company that is compliant? And then, LouAnn, I'm going to kick that over to you to kind of pile on.
Sure.
What are top of mind fundable companies that look healthy to you?
So every investor is trying to mitigate the risks, right? So basically, the risk assessment is going to be always conducted based on the type of product. When we talk about AI, we have to make sure that founders first want to learn and understand. It's not just you take the data, you train the data, and you're immediately ready to roll out the product, right? So they have to be interested in learning what is ethical AI, right? Because definitely we carry a lot of responsibilities these days as a consumers, as advisors, as market, because there are not enough regulations in that respect. And we have to anticipate that it's going to come, and then we have to be able to roll out that product. So basically, it's definitely talking to the team and seeing where they stand in that respect, and kind of anticipating the move before the move by assessing the product, assessing the data that they have, or how they obtain the data in the market they target. And that will give me the sense of, are they kind of fundable in the sense, like independent and risk tolerance, definitely.
Yeah.
But
I've heard this before, and just again, for the sake of conversation for our audience, this ethical AI. Give a quick definition of what that means to you, or kind of a high level idea of what that is.
I'll give an example. I think when car was invented, it took us like 10 years to get regulations in terms of how cars have to navigate intersections. And we had that time because there were a few cars and it was quite safe. Now, we don't have time. So basically technology develops so fast, the regulatory body cannot issue the regulations on time. So basically when I'm talking about ethical AI, I'm referring to the mechanism that we can implement right now without waiting for the government to issue something, to make sure that we are not in car crash, at least right now, and it's going to be safe for our kids to use the technology. And it's basically about safety and respect to each other, and boundaries and information about each other.
Yeah, I love this. Any part of this, Brian, you got something?
In your experience, Svetlana, are the majority of people developing AI companies adhering to that moral compass or that ethical compass? Or is it just do whatever you want at this point because the teacher left the room?
I think it depends on geography as well. Like one of the factors that I can see, those who are
global geography?
Yes.
Interesting.
I think the risk tolerance, the expectation of privacy is very different. Like it's one of the examples, right? So in Asia, there is pretty much zero expectation of privacy. So the tolerance that they have and understanding what ethical and not ethical is very different from Western standards. Right. So I think there is no like single response to this question. But yeah, we have a choice I have a choice to pick my clients and see who I'm comfortable. So that's a privilege of having a law firm, you know.
For those of us with kids, or even those of us that just live on the planet, we appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah. So LouAnn, jump in on this here because, you know, Svetlana's talking about taking a look at the team. Let's go a step beyond, like building the board.
Right.
What responsibility do they have? how can you guarantee, not guarantee, but how can we get some insight into what boards and executives must consider at an early stage?
Sure. So I think at its core is the fiduciary duty of care. And so it's making sure that the board is overseeing the corporate governance and ensuring that the company is making informed decisions. They've done their due diligence. They've, considered the options and implications, and have taken steps to address adverse consequences. And so, building on what Svetlana said about ethical AI, it's looking, it's almost like looking at your supply chain and considering that part of your supply chain. Do you want like kind of a broken link in that, or do you want something that mimics or aligns with the company's ethics and continues that on through the whole process? And so that's one of the reasons to look at it early on and from a startup perspective as well.
What are some early sign or early red flags that should be addressed? Because oftentimes, you're putting people on the board and you don't know what you don't know.
Right.
And if you were to kind of like trot out some common red flags early on, are there any to be discussed at this point, or is that maybe not a question we need to consider? It's like kind of like, do your best moving forward.
Well, I'm not sure what early red flags, like for the board. I mean, one of the biggest challenges is that boards have now is that they don't necessarily have the AI knowledge.
There we go.
So it's hard. It's hard for them to know what questions to ask. Like you said, you don't know what you don't know, and so there's a definite struggle to get board members that have AI expertise or experience on the board just to at least come on. And then I saw a recent review. Along those lines, I saw a recent survey of private companies, which said that after training their employees and picking use cases for AI, the third one was ensuring that their board was trained around AI, just to have those insights and to be able to then ask those questions that are much needed to be asked of the executive team.
And how do you, what does that training look like? What does that education look like? I mean, because I've sat in front of a lot of panels and people are talking about AI as if they have all the answers. But then you go to the more humble board and they're going, look, we don't.
Right.
Right. But this is what we do know. And you can kind of start to piece it together. So how do you kind of like help elevate that board, that team, so that they're on the right path? I mean, are there some things we do?
There's a lot of things. I mean, and there's no one right answer. I mean, to your point, it's like everybody's learning and it's like the house is on fire at the same time. So it's going out, taking training, taking advantages of those lessons, bringing in experts, maybe having an AI advisory board or, somebody that's focused on that can come in and help and offer their expertise as well. So that depending upon the specific needs of the board, it depends. But there are a variety of options. And I would say probably the best practices is not to just rely on one.
Yeah. I love that, because what I'm hearing is whether it's conversations about AI or what is a good leader or any aspect of startup or even just leadership. I'm hearing that constant communication, sharing of ideas, and integrating for a higher perspective is really the tool that we need to kind of keep pushing. Like there's so much happening in terms of the speed of AI and the speed of startup, let alone never mind the tech. The speed of startup is having these continuing conversations and having not only a team but a board that reflect this continuous conversation.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, I love that. All right, Brian, we're at 28 minutes. We're here talking with LouAnn, Svetlana. We're doing a deep dive into what startups need to know about de-risking their venture. And when we come back, we'll continue this conversation. Brian, take us to break. All right, we're back from our break, and we're here with LouAnn and Svetlana. Thank you both for joining us. We're kind of getting a high-level idea of AI, legal, compliance, governance. There's a lot to talk about, and without getting deep into that rabbit hole, but hey, if we go there, I'm not against that. What's next? I just got to trot that out, because the conversations always go really well during break, and we build on each other. So I want to bring that energy back. And I have to ask the same question. Like, LouAnn, I asked you and Svetlana the same question. Like, what's next when it comes to this conversation about governance, AI, compliance, law. Where do we go from here?
Yeah, and I think we've got a little bit of experience under our belts for many companies. So there's that kind of fear of missing out is kind of dying away, and now it's it's fear of implementation. Like, how do we do it right? And there's been some lessons learned.
Yeah.
So I think one of the examples that comes to mind is the company Klarna that works.
Sorry.
Sure.
Keep going.
That recently had a backpedal. They let go of a bunch of customer service reps, thinking that they would save a lot of money with AI, and then found that was not working out. And so then now they're having to hire a lot of those people.
What did they learn? I mean, I don't know if we have the details, but that's so fascinating because there's a big fear out there that AI is going to take jobs, and now they're walking that back. That wasn't the case.
And I think this might be a unique example, but I think in their case, there was a lot of dissatisfaction that was heard loud and clear with their customer service from their customers, and so they had to do some backpedaling there. And maybe as AI progresses, that might change. But I think that's one challenge.
Customer service. I can't tell you how many calls I've been getting lately from the chippy cheerleader sounding voice, and I know it's AI, and it's like I want a person, and it's just not working. Or
you're trying to get something done at one of your service providers, and they won't let you track off of the AI.
Right.
Like the AI keeps giving you crap answers, and there's just no off ramp.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is. At this point so far, it's horrible.
Right.
It's just a high tech answering machine. I hate it. You were talking during the break, LouAnn, and then I'm going to pivot to Svetlana. You were talking about AI maturity.
Right.
Tell me a little bit more about what that means, and does it add to what we're talking about here in terms of what we need to become as leaders? What does that look like?
Well, I think there's the overarching mature. I mean, you could take it a whole bunch of different ways, but like there's the maturity from the technology perspective, from the governance. So, you're starting out like just kind of sampling AI, seeing what it is, and then looking at it full on integration. Like, what does it mean as you're going to embed it, and how does that, as it becomes embedded, become part of the strategy for the company, and what does that look like? And so, as the technology matures as well, are you going to be able to keep up from a governance level? What are the implications as the technology advances and becomes more autonomous?
Yeah.
There's a whole host of challenges, and I know from a legal perspective, from a compliance, there's a lot of issues involved with that as well.
Yeah.
Yes, definitely the legal part, but I don't want to bore people with the legal side of the equation here. So I think what is important as we progress in this journey, I think a lot of business owners, management boards have to, first of all, do the screening and get the real picture. So they have to understand what is happening, because I'm talking right now as a lawyer, business owner. I spoke with one guy who's in tech and service provider, and he said, I spoke with a business law firm owner, and he said his employees don't use AI because they have policy. And that's not the case. So the thing that you wrote doesn't mean that it's implemented. So as we progress, we have to know definitely compliance and governance and law, but we have to connect it to real world. So there are other professionals that are involved in the process. So business owners, first of all, have to understand what is in fact happening in the company, who is using ChatGPT to write letters and emails, right? So, and there are a lot of softwares and ways to check that first, and then go into governance and try to choose the right vendor and regulate that and train people. Because without understanding what is happening in the business, we don't know what to do next. I think that's the reality check. And unfortunately, a lot of business owners are still in denial. And I'm referring to those business owners who are potential consumers of AI technology. And then we can train them how to review contracts, how to analyze the vendors, and on another end, train the AI developers how to present the product from the perspective that it's sellable.
I have to add a question. So this AI strategy, I just keep coming back to. I'm fascinated by it, but I have to ask about you talk about the policy. Oh, we don't use AI, and well, who is using ChatGPT and sneaking in with some AI tool? But when a startup or an early stage company commits to a tool and there's contracts in place, how what are they doing to themselves by potentially digging them into a contract or I'm trying to help me out here, Brian. I'm
not sure. I'm not sure where you're headed with this.
I'm glitching. So if you have an AI strategy and you commit to a particular tool within your company and then it evolves or it's not working and you're dug in now from a contract perspective, I think I'm going there, and that commitment to particular tools, what does a startup need to consider with their decisions and their commitments to contracts and tools that they bring in?
Okay,
I got there eventually, so yeah, thank you for bearing with me.
So first of all, as I mentioned, like startup has to know what tools are being used. Because if we're talking about startup and product development, there are a lot of legal implications in terms of IP ownership when you use AI tools to develop that IP. And a lot of engineers these days use AI to code, and that has very different implication compared to like manual coding. That's number one. Number two, we definitely, and I see a lot of startups that sell the product and they cannot really spell out what is happening with output. So let's say I use AI tool, like in a law firm, I develop the contract using that AI tool. That is an output. Who owns that output? I don't want to train the tool by using my internal data and my client data to pass it back to the startup. And there are so many legal tech companies right now that come to me to sell the product. And when I ask the salespeople this question, they get puzzled. So if you don't know as a startup, if you don't know what is happening with privacy, data management, and who owns the output, you cannot sell that product. So basically, that's what I'm saying about fundability and kind of scalability. If you don't address that in the early stage, where are you going? You cannot sell the product.
Yeah.
I was just going to tack on Svetlana because you mentioned IP. You went over it really lightly, but the difference between, say, AI generating code versus the or a human has total implications potentially in terms of the IP, and then the fundability for the company. Going back to
absolutely, yeah, and it has to be tracked,
right?
So, and when you these days, Brian.
Oh no, sorry, never mind. Please keep going.
He's getting excited. He's getting into it. I love it.
I'm definitely engaged over here. Well, I mean, the implications are massive, right? Because I think a lot of people don't understand what AI is. And they're talking into it, they're typing into it, they're donating a bunch of their own opinions and ideas, and don't realize that those are being utilized then by the person who's providing that interface to them. Right. And I can imagine a company contracting an AI company and not realizing that you maybe have the option to keep your own data as your own and be building your own language model in-house, but on the platform that they provided for you.
Exactly. That's correct. And
I think people don't know the difference.
And there are so many agents and personas that are developed, and companies sell agents and personas, let's say in e-commerce. But if that agent gets access to all your data, what is sellable, what is the most popular good, and everything related to that. So basically you're selling trade secret by just subscribing on this product.
But you want the product because it's offering you the opportunity to save money, probably at least, and be more efficient and so forth.
And that's another mistake. Yeah, everyone thinks that it's like quick fix in terms of saving money, which is not correct.
I just hear somebody buzzing, but I don't know. We're gonna let it go.
You're gonna.
Do you need to answer that, Brian?
It's not me. It's not me.
We'll keep going.
Okay. Okay.
It stopped.
I see squirrel and I get distracted, right?
I'm in here, I'm trying to run everything, and I hear something buzzing, all of a sudden I'm like...
we had a squirrel moment here in the studio.
Like, so we'll just keep rolling. We have an audience out there listening, so let's just get past it.
I love it. So I definitely... Let's go with this next question.
Svetlana is up now.
She's up and moving around. I love it. She's figured it out.
It's okay, it can stay on. Wherever it is, it can stay on. Don't worry about it.
So, LouAnn, let's talk a little bit about, again, the strategy. Again, I'm fascinated by it. And from your perspective, I mean, we can look at it from a legal perspective. I know there's great crossover. what from a compliance and government perspective, governance perspective, can we really start developing these buckets? I'm hearing Svetlana say, and the conversation we're having today is there's so much potential for crossover, and to prevent this crossover and losing your particular, your AI or whatever, whatever you're building. How can a naive, or I don't know the right word, but what can we start to consider in terms of a strategy? Where do we begin with that idea? Because again, I want to keep coming back to it and reiterating it for our audience.
So I guess the strategy should probably have nothing to do with the AI for these mid-sized companies, but it's like, how can that drive towards the strategy? How can the implementation of AI do that? And so then it's from a board's perspective, they should be understanding how this business is run, where are the risks, where are the kind of opportunities for it, and then looking at that and figuring out how does then the AI and the use of AI fit into delivering on that strategy. And so looking at it from, I think in the beginning there was a lot of ideas about AI being a cost savings, like when we went to that Klarna example, it's like a cost savings, but I'm likening that to, well, so is buying the Costco membership as a cost savings, but that's not my strategy. So how do you pivot to like looking at it from more of I have this capacity that I'm creating as a result of using AI that can really help drive with my talent, with my people, with my resources, and how do I leverage it from that perspective?
Oh, that's good. So, Svetlana, you want to add to that a little bit?
Yeah, and it usually doesn't take a few days. So that's the biggest mistake that companies have. I think that cost-saving idea is that we're going to save costs tomorrow. So we'll create agents today, and we're going to let go people, and tomorrow the magic happen. But it takes time to develop. It's implementation process, right? How do we adopt that? And then it requires a lot of like infrastructure, etc. So it's not quick fix. And in order to do it right, you have to commit to the process. And these days, from what I hear from different companies try to do it not just to save costs, but to provide a different level of experience, improve the services. That's what I believe. If you want to commit to AI and implement AI and improve your services, that makes sense. If you want to just do the quick fix, right now, most likely you're going to make a lot of mistakes.
And you're going to be disappointed. And I think kind of going back to the maturity you're asking, I think a lot of companies are realizing that maybe their information, the data that they have is not necessarily in a good place. It's all over the place. And so making sure that it's accessible to be looked at holistically, to glean the information that's going to help drive their strategies forward. And then the other challenges is, and this is a big one, as we mentioned early on, is around training. Are the people trained? Do they have the experience that they need to be able to deliver around the AI? And then just change management. Because I think, as you mentioned, it's like, I think the first knee-jerk reaction for a lot of employees is I'm going to lose my job as a result of this.
Yeah. Talk a little bit about change management. How do you bring in this tech or implement this tech without creating so much resistance? Talk a little bit about this change management strategy.
I think a lot of it's just understanding. It's education. What is it? And then addressing what people hear or perceive. And this goes back to the culture and the vision of the company is like, it's I'll make this up. It's part of our culture to treat all of our employees right and to make sure that they have the real resources and tools they need. So, maybe it's, as I said, building capacity. It's we're not losing anybody. We're giving you more opportunity to do valuable work, but you're having to explain that. Make sure that, that there's the classic expression that this is happening with you, not to you.
Yeah. Okay, I want to turn the page a little bit because something you said earlier, Svetlana, that shifted my perspective on how we talk about AI. Let's talk about AI from a different perspective, the investor's perspective. Obviously, as you are building a company, you have to consider a lot of different angles on implementation and usage of AI. But how can those who are listening right now, who are angel investors, LPs, managers, start to look at companies that have their ducks in order versus those that are a little bit more chaotic? Do you advise investors as well, or are you just on that side? Is there a way for an investor to look at this and continue to look for what's healthy in a startup?
So in fact, LouAnn and me are working right now on a product for investors that we are planning to start offering it probably in September, where we will work with portfolio companies. So, like when, let's say, round A, already probably round B, investors have usually a list of things that startup have to do in order to get compliant, in order to clean the books, in order to make the product sellable and be covered from legal perspective. So that is coming from AI. Like right now, I see the due diligence list from investors who invest in AI, and they're very different from those that we saw before. So we want to suggest to investors that work and invest in AI startups so they can provide that product to the portfolio companies and say, hey guys, like we have the checklist, go check with the checklist and we'll take them to compliance. So basically, yes, we're in the process of preparation.
Is it something you're building or someone you're partnering with?
No, we are building.
You're building yourself.
Yes, yeah.
So LouAnn, talk a little bit about this from the investor's perspective, because again, we have startups, we have investors listening right now.
Sure.
How can we learn as investors to get smarter on the ever-changing, quickly evolving AI to identify the healthy companies? What are some of those things that we need to take a look at?
Well, I was thinking kind of back to the checklist that Svetlana talked about too is and I think this is the classic case with a lot of startups is that they think about it from the technology perspective, but you got to think about it more broadly from the business perspective. So I think that's where the more healthy are thinking about is that holistic look. Is like what are the end users going to think about? And so making sure that the technology is there from a compliance, from a regulatory perspective, but also from an integration into the systems and having that easily spelled out so it's easily to kind of plug in to these.
Give me, let's, again, I'm gonna go after this a little bit more. Like if I'm looking to invest in a company, it's got AI component, and I need to be educated, right? This sounds like a great idea. They're selling it, they're wrapping it. What is it that I need to start looking at to see if this is a healthy, fundable company outside the traditional evaluators of a fundable company?
So I'll give you the perspective. Let's say I'm in-house lawyer for a big corporation. And basically startups, when they start, there are two outcomes that they're looking for, right? To get acquired by a big corporation or to go for IPO. So if they get acquired, that means that product is going to be integrated into the product of that big corporation. And big corporation already invested a lot of money and time into governance, into safety of the product, right? Regulatory compliance, privacy protection, etc. So they don't want to integrate something that may be potentially damaging for the product. So what we are looking at, and what is AI? AI is basically the first and the most important thing for AI is data. So what kind of data do you take in the first place? How do you collect the data? Do you have rights on the data? Was the data crossing the borders these days? So we have to look into potential compliance in terms of import and export of technology as well. So the first and the most important piece is data. Where do you store the data? Right now we have regulatory requirement in terms of headquarter company in the US have to store the data in the US, like at least 50%. So that is like the first piece. And then we build off that, right? So how the data is trained, how we protect and how do we save the output of the result of the data processing. But the first component is data handling and kind of all regulations around the data.
Right.
I love this.
And then I was just going to add on, and as it develops and evolves, is it continuing to do what it's supposed to do, or is it kind of going off into different directions and making sure that there's steps in place, governance to handle those sorts of outcomes?
And I want to add a little bit on that. In terms of governance, early stage startups don't track what are they using in terms of AI themselves. So to the point of code and IP protection, if you code on the ChatGPT, let's say, it's not copyrightable. So potentially for investors or for future corporation that wants to buy, it's a potential IP infringement case. Right. So you don't want to buy potential litigation. And if you cannot differentiate the code drafted by the engineer or by ChatGPT, then you kind of expose yourself very broadly.
How do you do that? Like, I mean, this may be a very naive question, but you definitely, with all these moving parts and ever evolving data input, how are you protecting yourself? I mean, how are they doing that to monitor? And it's not just one engineer. There's usually giant teams. It could be a number of so how are we able to protect ourselves as investors and startups?
I think it's not as difficult. If you're conscious, you want to learn, you know about the risks.
Mm-hmm.
There are so many smart people and advisors in Silicon Valley, at least, right? So who can help you, and there are different components for different things. And I can see that my clients who are serial entrepreneurs, who have second, third startup, they're very conscious. They know that they have to do that. They ask, and we discuss these things.
Mm-hmm.
Those who do that first time will think about that tomorrow. Basically, the most common, I mean, for early stage companies.
Mm-hmm.
But the experienced entrepreneurs know that they just have to bring the right people. I'm not necessarily referring to lawyers or advisors, but there are tech people who have to be a part of the team, who know how to screen that and capture and store the information, you know?
Yeah, that's good.
And that goes back to the culture of the company and making sure you're building it with the right, to your point, the right people, not only from kind of the technical solutions or bringing on the advisors, but just having the right people that are aligned with the mission and vision of the company.
Okay, I love this. Is getting good. So I have to ask, I mean, in our opening, you talked about who you focus on, but who should be asking these questions next? You know, LouAnn, coming to you, like, what's that ideal customer for you? Same question for you, Svetlana, but LouAnn, like, who is coming to you asking these questions for help?
Well, I think companies that are growing companies that are scaling and looking to maybe go for that next round of funding or looking to go for that exit, helping them prepare. You know, I think it just, getting it set up to make it as easy as possible. I think kind of paraphrasing what Svetlana said, is like making it as transparent, making it as easy as possible for the investors to make the decision to go forward with this company. And so helping them not only around AI, but around the operations and everything else in general, just to make it as easy and simple as an effort as possible for everybody.
I like this. Svetlana, same question.
Yeah, I agree with LouAnn. So we serve this type of clients. And the second group is basically companies that adopt AI. So when you start the adoption of AI, you have to know what you're doing as well. You definitely have ideas in terms of business, how it should look like, but what does it take, how it should be regulated, how the contracts have to be reviewed, how the vendors have to be screened. Those are things that they have to know, and we are happy to educate in that respect.
And I was just going to add, I think, going back to the AI and the maturity is with those companies and adopting, everybody's still trying to figure it out. And so just being aware or helping them understand what the risks are now and how things change as AI adopts and uses change, the implications from a risk perspective and an overarching governance perspective as well.
So, Svetlana, you're talking about the contracts and being informed. Is there something that, you talked about what you guys are building. Is there something that our audience can tap into to kind of incrementally learn what is necessary as their company grows? Or even, again, the investor who wants to get educated on the health of a company. Is there a resource, yourselves, is there something that people can start digging into to start educating themselves?
We have checklists for early stage companies that those who are not at the position to invest. So we give checklists, at least they know what they have to anticipate. Another thing that we do for early stage companies is due diligence checklist that investor would give them when they're going to do due diligence. So when they develop the product, they kind of anticipate what they're going to show down the road. So those are the simple solutions. But stay informed and go to conferences, get connected to community, learn from the mistakes of others. You don't necessarily have to do it yourself.
Yeah, a lot of mistakes out there.
And I was just going to say, I think going back to what you talked about with networking and everybody here in Silicon Valley, it's just rich with opportunities to have those experiences and those conversations with startups maybe that are a bit further along in the curve than you, and being able to take in those lessons learned and this is what worked and bring it forward.
there's no. I think I'm hearing this, and again, I will quickly say I'm very naive in this space. It's not. There's not one answer. It's like a chess game where it's like you need to continually evolve the strategy as the game moves along, and what I did in my game may not be what you need to do in your game at the stage that you're at. Is that kind of a clear analogy? Does that make sense?
I would say that's the case, and especially because across industries and everybody's risk tolerance is a bit different. So it's a matter of trying to figure out what works within those constraints.
Yeah. Well, I like again, being a communications geek here, I like this idea of continually have the conversation so you can layer on insights, and that's what I'm thinking is happening. Is again, it's evolving so quickly, and we're all learning. We need to be just completely transparent in terms of the conversations that we need to have, and constantly coming to people like you, LouAnn, and you, Svetlana, and having these conversations is a big need.
And I just wanted to build on what you said, because I think additionally, it's having those conversations and continuing to do it because things are constantly changing, and everybody's still trying to figure it out. And I think the other thing is like around governance and some of these other tools, it's not, nobody's experienced fully what can happen yet. So we may be using tools that aren't quite up to task for what we need. And those have to be adjusted as well.
Yeah.
I want to say that last summer, European Union adopted AI Act, and that is similar to GDPR, is going to be, in my opinion, kind of golden standard for now. In the US, we have a very big fight, I don't know if you follow, between federal government and states in terms of AI regulations. So that's kind of a power that they are fighting for.
Yeah, Brian, I heard this AI fight. I immediately thought of your Star Trek analogy.
Oh, we shouldn't get...
Absolutely.
I don't know if that we want to get in my Star Trek analogy here because I get so excited about it.
Inside joke, yeah, it's a little inside joke here. Okay,
yeah, but I think that's exactly what we're touching. I mean, that's like a fourth battleship in the mix, is the state federal concern.
It came out of the sun.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
I love it. So,
but listen. I think that along with a number of other things, that's one of the questions of our age, is that who has control, state or Fed, right? I mean, it's becoming much more on the forefront of what everybody's talking about.
Absolutely. And it's not that straightforward, because if we have state regulation, that means that the compliance is going to be so difficult. Everyone is going to come up with the standards. And if we talk about the AI product, definitely you're planning to sell at least in the US, right? So if we even don't talk about global market, let's say US market, and you have to comply with regulations in like 50 states, and California already they prepared at least 10 regulations that are coming out. Mm-hmm. So the compliance is going to be massive expense for startups, and it's really prohibitive in a sense. But if we pass it to federal, then it's a concentrated power for next 10 years in one hand, basically, without any distribution.
And concentrated power in the hands of a lot of people who barely know how to get their email on their iPhone. Yeah. I mean, right? I mean, some of these people are very seasoned, mature, and they really have no knowledge. I mean, I think that all of this is very difficult to grasp. It's moving very, very quickly. We have people come in and speak on this show who are just sort of not barely keeping up, but really only just keeping up. And the people sitting in Washington, I feel like, they're just ill-equipped to be able to deal with the speed at which this is evolving.
Yeah. So leadership is definitely challenged.
Yeah, I love that. Well, that's another deep conversation there.
And then we'll get into my Star Trek theory.
Yeah. Bring it up at the end of the show.
If you can grasp that whole state-fed thing, then maybe you have a chance of understanding how the Star Trek theory is really positioning itself.
Yeah, and we'll do a whole episode on the Star Trek theory in the future. Before we go, I definitely want to allow our audience to be able to follow up with you. Svetlana, how can people connect with you? And then also, and this is for you too, LouAnn, what is that one piece of insight, advice that our audience should take away from this conversation when it comes to preparing themselves from a legal perspective, compliance perspective, government's perspective, building their board? What is that one takeaway We'll call it cracking open the fortune cookie. What is it? I love it. Yeah.
I think it goes back to what we started with, starting as early as possible, and recognizing that you don't know everything, but there are people out there that maybe don't have all the answers themselves, but can definitely help get you in the right direction.
How can people connect with you?
Sagacious Think is the website. L. Conner, Conner at sagaciousthink.com.
Okay. Love it. And you're on LinkedIn too, right?
And I'm on LinkedIn.
Okay. Love it. Svetlana, fortune cookie insight, and then how can people connect with you?
Yeah, that's a tough one. I think like the advice to startups is at least to try to develop something that you would want your kids to consume. I think that's going to be the safest and kind of the simplest way to put that. In terms of how to connect with me, definitely website. The law firm is Primum Law Group. It's PRIMUM law.com. My email is svk@primumlaw.com, and definitely LinkedIn. I'm Svetlana Kamyshanskaya Pantelich. I promised my husband to finish change of my last name like last 3 years. So hopefully I'll
that's a mouthful. That's a lot of last name right there.
That's a sentence. Yeah. Well, I want to thank you both for being here. You're awesome. I really appreciate this learning session. Got to have you out to Oakland, Svetlana. Maybe give a little work.
I will make it.
Yeah, maybe we're looking for people to do some workshops and stuff like that. Doing some lunch and learn. So maybe you both will join us for those out there.
We could unveil our new tool there.
Yes, let's do it. All right, you heard it here first on Silicon Valley Impact. Thank you for joining us, Brian. You're amazing. Thanks, buddy.
You are, Brian. Thank you guys. Appreciate it.
Stay safe. See you all soon.